Welcome the anointed ones. Some souls never need to lift their voice. The moment they enter a space, the air rearranges itself, the rhythm shifts, and the room quietly recalibrates around their presence. That kind of opening stirs something in certain listeners, because it names a reality almost no one is willing to speak about in plain words. True influence does not always come with fanfare. Sometimes it simply walks in and takes its place. Sometimes that presence observes. Sometimes it measures. Sometimes it grasps what is unfolding long before the rest of the room even notices. And when that happens, the silence that follows is not born from admiration. It comes from something far more primal. It comes from instinct. Here is a truth the majority will never voice. Human beings are wired to detect mental and emotional superiority long before the conscious mind can even label it. Research in behavioral science confirms that the brain performs unconscious threat evaluations in mere milliseconds, scanning signals like composure, pattern recognition, and the steadiness of emotional response. In simpler words, before another person decides whether they enjoy your company, trust your words, or quietly dismiss you, their nervous system has already taken the measure of your awareness. And if that awareness is refined, grounded, and disciplined, the first reaction is rarely admiration. It is caution. That is where the dynamic becomes fascinating, because your spiritual authority does not arrive the way films, quotes, or social media promised you it would. You are not floating through rooms preaching to anyone or straining to appear profound. You are simply thinking clearly while the rest of the room performs. You are steady while others recite their rehearsed lines. You are catching the things that go unspoken. And somehow, without trying, you are 3 moves ahead of exchanges you never even initiated. People feel that energy. They just lack the language to describe it. So they call it intimidating or hard to read, or my personal favorite, that quiet yet intense thing, as if that were a flaw. And let's be real, half the unease people carry has nothing to do with the spiritual dimension. It is about a kind of intelligence that refuses to perform for applause. Individuals grow uncomfortable around someone who can trace patterns, decode motives, and forecast outcomes without ever raising their voice or making a scene. They grow even more uneasy when that person carries a sense of humor about the whole thing. Nothing destabilizes insecurity faster than someone who comprehends the game and refuses to break a sweat. So, if you have started noticing odd behavior around you, people over-explaining themselves, posturing, suddenly becoming amateur philosophers, or simply falling into an unexplained hush, do not flatter yourself. And do not doubt yourself either. What they are responding to is not arrogance. It is not ego. It is presence carrying depth, awareness anchored in restraint, intelligence that does not beg to be seen. And that particular combination, it quietly frightens people, whether they admit it or not. Number 1, your awareness tears apart the illusions others rely on just to function. Most individuals do not inhabit truth. They inhabit carefully constructed narratives that help them navigate the day without unraveling. These narratives explain who they are, justify their patterns, and guarantee that certain outcomes are never their responsibility. Your presence endangers those narratives, not because you attack them, but because you perceive right through them. That is the source of the discomfort people carry around you. You do not argue with their version of reality. You simply identify what is missing, what is exaggerated, and what is plainly invented. Your intelligence does not function on surface-level explanations. When someone offers a justification, you instinctively sense the motivation underneath the justification. When someone performs confidence, you register the insecurity it is masking. When someone claims innocence, you can feel whether it is genuine or merely convenient. You do not require dramatic proof. Your awareness accumulates patterns across time. Tone, timing, contradictions, emotional slippage. It all registers, and people sense that you are doing this without visible effort, which is what truly gets beneath their skin. The unsettling element is that you do not hurry to expose anything. You let people talk. You let them reveal themselves. That quiet is not absence. It is processing. And somewhere deep down, people recognize this. They sense that the image of themselves they are projecting will not hold up under prolonged contact with your awareness. That is when the nervous laughter begins. That is when they over-explain, pivot to safer topics, or suddenly grow defensive for no clear reason. What frightens the most is that you do not need to dismantle their illusion with words. Your comprehension alone begins to erode it. People feel perceived in a manner that bypasses their usual defenses, and that is terrifying for anyone whose identity depends on remaining just misunderstood enough to dodge accountability around you. You can support this work through the link in the pinned comment with a coffee, a donation, or becoming a member of our community. By doing so, you become part of Jesus' plan to save souls who are still stuck in fog. Every seed turns into light that fights against darkness. If you water others, you will be watered yourself. Half measures do not work. Excuses ring hollow. Performances miss their mark. You are not cruel about this. You are not passing judgment. But you are precise. And precision is dangerous in a world where many people survive by softening the edges of truth. Your awareness does not shout, accuse, or confront. It simply refuses to participate in the fabrication. That quiet refusal is more than enough to leave people feeling exposed, even when you have not uttered a single word. Number 2, you think in dimensions rather than declarations, and that throws others off balance. Most people arrive at opinions quickly because opinions are soothing. They offer a sense of certainty without demanding much depth. You do not function that way. When something occurs, your mind does not leap to a conclusion. It begins layering. You register what happened, the probable why, who stands to gain, what is being sidestepped, and what this pattern has resembled in past cycles. By the time others are picking sides, you are already observing the architecture beneath the situation. This is where the uneasiness around you begins to take shape. People cannot place you. You are not reacting emotionally in the ways they anticipate, and you are not aligning with the popular narrative either. You are absorbing more information than you are releasing. That imbalance makes people nervous. They sense they are playing checkers while you are quietly mapping the entire board. Your intelligence is not loud, and it does not rush to announce itself. When someone voices a forceful opinion, you do not automatically push back or nod along. You pause. You weigh the context, the history, the incentives, and the inconsistencies. That pause alone destabilizes people. In a culture that mistakes rapid reactions for confidence, your restraint registers as unsettling. What truly disorients people is your capacity to hold several truths at once. You understand that someone can be right about one thing and mistaken about another. You recognize that good intentions do not erase harmful behavior. You see that being wounded does not automatically make someone innocent. Most people are not equipped to navigate that level of nuance. They want clean heroes and obvious villains. You see humans. Because of this, people struggle to manipulate you. Emotional pressure does not corner you. Dramatic storytelling does not sway you. Even intellectual arguments do not land unless they are structurally sound. You are not impressed by volume, bravado, or credentials. You are searching for coherence, and when it is not present, you do not attack it. You simply decline to buy it. That is the element that unsettles those around you. You do not mirror their certainty. You do not validate shaky logic just to keep the atmosphere smooth. You quietly remain unconvinced when something fails to add up. People can sense that you are not sold, even when you never say it. And for those who rely on agreement to feel secure, your layered thinking feels like standing on unstable ground. Number 3, your composure is not passive. It is predatory awareness. People frequently mistake composure for weakness. They see someone who is not flustered, who is not yelling, who is not reacting on impulse, and they assume they can push, manipulate, or outmaneuver that person. They believe the calm is empty, easy to fill, or a sign of naivety. They could not be more mistaken. Your calm is not passive. It is intentional, deliberate, and quietly formidable. It is the kind of presence that does not need to prove anything, yet inherently commands attention, respect, and a measure of fear. Your awareness underpins it. You register everything without appearing to. The tone of a voice, the shift in body language, the patterns people repeat when they think no one is watching. All of it sits on your radar. You are processing motives, inconsistencies, and outcomes faster than anyone realizes. That makes your calm feel almost dangerous. Even if you have not moved or spoken, people around you sense it subconsciously. It triggers an internal alarm they cannot silence. They know you perceive what they are attempting to conceal, and they cannot do anything about it. What makes this even more disarming is that you never need to overreact. You are not performing intensity or putting on a show. You simply exist in a state of quiet comprehension, and it makes people squirm because it is unpredictable. They do not know if you are about to confront, correct, or simply walk away. The uncertainty alone unsettles them. Your calm also grants you leverage without you asking for it. When everyone else is reacting emotionally, losing their composure or spiraling over perceived threats, you remain centered. That gap between your steadiness and everyone else's chaos highlights their weaknesses, making them more visible to you and indirectly to anyone paying attention. You do not exploit them unnecessarily, but the awareness that you could and the ease with which you could is unmistakable. Your calm is a statement in itself. It tells people you are in command, not of them, not of the situation, but of yourself. And in a world where most people are controlled by fear, pride, and impulse, that level of mastery makes your presence feel both magnetic and quietly intimidating. You do not need to act. The calm alone does the work. Number 4, you do not absorb groupthink, and that renders you unpredictable. Most people's minds are shaped by consensus long before they recognize it. Opinions, trends, social pressures, and collective fears function like invisible scaffolding, holding everyone inside a predictable pattern. You do not play that game. You do not absorb the popular narrative simply because it is loud or repeated often enough. You evaluate things independently based on observation, logic, and intuition. You notice the gaps others overlook, the biases they do not question, and the assumptions everyone else accepts as given. That makes your perspective rare, and that rarity makes people uncomfortable. Your unpredictability is not about chaos, it is about clarity. You do not automatically side with the majority or bow to the loudest voice. You make decisions that align with what is true, what makes sense, and what will actually work, even if it contradicts social expectations. People notice it instantly. They realize that the usual levers they use, peer pressure, shame, approval, do not affect you. That realization throws them off, because they have built their sense of control around everyone else following the same predictable patterns. Being outside of groupthink also grants you a quiet kind of authority. People sense that your choices are not performative. They are not trying to impress anyone. That removes leverage from anyone trying to manipulate the room. They cannot predict your reactions, so they cannot strategize against you. You become an unknown variable in every social interaction, and the human brain does not like unknowns. It reacts with subtle unease, overcompensation, or awkward energy. What makes this even more potent is that you do not flaunt it. You do not announce your independence from the herd. You simply act, think, and respond in a way that reveals it organically. That combination of calm autonomy and unexpected insight makes people uneasy, because they sense intelligence and awareness operating on a level they cannot touch. They feel a presence they cannot control. And the truth is, you do not need them to understand your thought process for it to matter. The unpredictability itself becomes a silent power, one that people notice before they fully grasp why. Number 5, you detect emotional manipulation instantly and do not reward it. Most people operate on autopilot when it comes to emotions. Guilt trips, sob stories, dramatic outbursts, and charm tactics usually yield results because people respond reflexively. You do not. You spot manipulation as easily as breathing. You notice the timing, the exaggeration, the inconsistencies between words and actions. You see the strategy before the performance begins, and that awareness changes the dynamic entirely. What terrifies people is that their usual tricks, the ones that work on everyone else, do not land on you. You do not need to call it out aggressively. Your response, or sometimes your lack of response, is enough to signal that you are not participating in the game. That creates tension, because manipulators rely on subtle rewards to keep their system functioning. They need reactions, guilt, compliance, distraction, sympathy. Without those reactions, their power evaporates. Your awareness alone quietly dismantles the leverage they thought they possessed. You can support this work through the link in the pinned comment, with a coffee, a donation, or becoming a member of our community. By doing so, you become part of Jesus' plan to save souls who are still stuck in fog. Every seed turns into light that fights against darkness. If you water others, you will be watered yourself. People notice quickly that emotional pressure does not move you. You remain measured, observing, and discerning, and that makes others defensive. They may increase intensity, act confused, or over-explain themselves, trying to force an outcome that you simply will not provide. That defensiveness is evidence of your awareness in action. You do not need to assert dominance or call someone out. The fact that their tactics fail is enough to leave them feeling exposed. The real power of this is in how it shifts interactions over time. People stop trying to manipulate you because it becomes exhausting and pointless. They realize that any effort to sway you emotionally will be visible, predictable, and ineffective. That does not make you mean. It makes you calibrated. You are not punishing anyone. You are simply refusing to participate in the illusions they rely on. Your intelligence combined with this emotional clarity creates a quiet, magnetic authority. People sense it instinctively. You are not easily shaken, not easily fooled, and not easily moved by superficial displays of vulnerability. That unshakable awareness is what makes your presence intimidating and your interactions profoundly different. You are not reactive. You are the observer who sets the tone without saying a word. Number 6. Your questions are more threatening than your answers. Most people speak to impress, to convince, or to prove they are right. Your approach is different. You ask questions that are not just questions. They are instruments of clarity. They cut through pretense, highlight inconsistencies, and expose motives without ever needing to accuse or argue. The subtlety of this is what makes it so disarming. People do not notice at first that your curiosity is strategic. They only realize later that in trying to answer, they have revealed more than they intended. The danger you present is not in what you know. It is in how you make others confront what they have not fully examined themselves. When someone answers your question, they are not just providing information. They are inadvertently validating patterns, exposing gaps in logic and revealing emotional weaknesses. That kind of exposure is uncomfortable because it happens quietly, without drama. They leave the conversation knowing they have been perceived in a way that bypasses their defenses. Your questions are not aggressive, and that is why they are so effective. You do not lecture or condemn. You do not need to. People reveal themselves simply by trying to respond. A single, well-placed question can make someone reevaluate everything they have said, thought, or justified. That level of insight, exercised through subtle inquiry rather than loud confrontation, feels threatening because it operates in plain sight, yet escapes immediate recognition. What is even more unsettling for people is that your questions are not predictable. You do not ask to follow a script or win a debate. You ask to understand, but in doing so, you reveal layers that others cannot hide. They feel exposed without realizing why. Their confidence erodes silently, while your presence remains composed, unshaken, and alert. This makes your communication unlike anything most people are prepared for. You do not need to dominate with answers or assert your intelligence. Your questions alone shift the balance of perception, positioning you as someone who understands more than they can express. That is why your quiet inquiry is more powerful and more intimidating than any answer you could ever give. Number 7. You carry restraint, not repression, and people feel the difference. Most people confuse restraint with weakness, as if holding back means you lack strength or conviction. You operate differently. Your restraint is intentional, conscious, and rooted in understanding. It is not about suppressing emotion, impulse, or knowledge. It is about knowing when, where, and how to act. That distinction is subtle, but it radiates outward, and people notice it immediately. They can feel that your energy is measured, deliberate, and fully aware of its own capacity. That awareness alone makes your presence commanding. People around you are often frantic, reactive, and impulsive. They rush to speak, to dominate, to prove themselves, and to manipulate. You do not. You watch, process, and hold yourself in check. That silence, that patience, communicates power without words. It is a quiet warning. You can act, And when you do, it will be precise, impactful, and unavoidable. Your restraint is your signature. It creates tension because people sense the depth of what you could do if you chose to. What makes this even more intimidating is that your restraint is not fueled by fear or uncertainty. It is fueled by clarity and discipline. You are fully aware of your own potential and the consequences of your actions. You do not need to prove yourself to anyone, and that removes all leverage from those who try to control or test you. People instinctively feel that you operate on a different level where patience is strength and impulsive reactions are a liability. Restraint also signals emotional mastery. You do not overreact, you do not exaggerate, and you do not overcommit your energy to trivial conflicts. This creates an invisible boundary. People understand that empty drama, manipulation, and games will not sway you. They sense that engaging you recklessly is pointless, and that sense of inevitability, that your calm, measured control cannot be bypassed, is what unsettles them the most. You carry restraint like armor. It is not cold or distant. It is aware, alive, and quietly unshakable. People may try to push, provoke, or test you, but your energy does not crack or spill. That difference between restraint and repression is felt on a level they cannot articulate, and it leaves a lasting impression of quiet, undeniable authority. Number 8. You do not need to dominate conversations to control the room. Most people think influence comes from volume. Talk louder, interrupt more, or outshine others with flashy arguments. You operate on a completely different level. Your presence alone sets the tone. You do not need to compete for attention because you command it naturally. When you speak, your words carry weight, not because they are forced or performative, but because they land with clarity, precision, and authority. People listen, not out of obligation, but because they subconsciously recognize that what you say matters. What makes this so powerful is that your control is not visible in a conventional way. You do not overreact, correct everyone, or assert dominance aggressively. Instead, you shift the dynamics of the room with subtle cues. Your timing, your tone, your choice to remain silent in the right moment. That silence is not emptiness. It is a statement. It communicates confidence, awareness, and patience, which makes others aware of their own behavior. They adjust, often without realizing they are doing it. And that unspoken influence is far more potent than trying to win a debate or speak over someone. Your intelligence amplifies this effect. You listen more than you speak. And when you do contribute, it reframes the conversation. People feel the shift, often realizing too late that the direction of discussion changed because of a single comment you made. That makes your input feel almost surgical. It is precise, impactful, and undeniable. This type of presence creates a subtle tension. People who rely on noise, theatrics, or manipulation to feel in control start second-guessing themselves. They notice that attempts to dominate or sway the conversation fail without obvious reason. Your calm command exposes gaps in their confidence and strategy without you having to say a word. Controlling the room this way is not about ego. It is about mastery. You influence through presence, observation, and carefully measured contribution. People instinctively feel the difference between someone trying to lead and someone who naturally directs. And that natural, effortless control is what makes your intelligence and spiritual power feel both magnetic and quietly intimidating. Number 9. You do not chase validation, which removes leverage over you. Most people live their lives in pursuit of approval, whether they realize it or not. They seek praise, likes, compliments, recognition, or even subtle nods of agreement to feel safe and secure. That constant need creates predictable patterns, and anyone who notices those patterns can manipulate them. You operate differently. You do not chase validation. You do not measure your worth by how others respond or conform to your presence. That independence is not arrogance, it is clarity, and it shifts the balance of every interaction. The effect on people around you is immediate and profound. When someone tries to impress, manipulate, or influence you through approval-seeking tactics, it does not work. They can sense that you do not require their validation to feel grounded or confident. That realization makes them uneasy, because for most people, approval is the tool they use to control, measure, or navigate relationships. Without that leverage, they are exposed, and they know it. Your self-sufficiency also amplifies your authority. You are not reactive to praise or criticism. You respond based on understanding, insight, and principle. This removes the usual levers of influence people rely on. They cannot guilt you, charm you, or sway you with social pressure because your focus is not on what they think. It is on what is true, coherent, and necessary. That kind of presence makes you appear untouchable without effort. People instinctively feel the difference between someone who operates from external approval and someone who operates from internal certainty. They notice your energy does not fluctuate with moods, trends, or opinions. They sense that no amount of manipulation, flattery, or social play can shake your sense of self. That quiet independence is magnetic, unsettling, and often misunderstood as intimidation or aloofness. By not chasing validation, you create a sphere of autonomy few can penetrate. People instinctively respect it, fear it, or both, because it denies them the familiar tools of control. Your intelligence, awareness, and self-possession operate on a level where social games simply do not land. And that makes your presence both extraordinary and quietly disruptive. Number 10. You detect hypocrisy without announcing it, and that is unsettling. Most people spend a surprising amount of energy hiding who they really are. They perform morality, virtue, or kindness as if it is a costume, hoping no one will notice the cracks underneath. You do not need to call anyone out to see what is really happening. You sense the inconsistencies between words and actions, between promises and behavior, and between intention and reality. That awareness does not require confrontation. It simply exists, and people feel it. What makes this disarming is that it operates silently. You do not loudly accuse or expose. You simply register the truth. People pick up on your perception, often before you even speak. There is a subtle tension in the room, a quiet recognition that their performance will not fly around you. That tension is uncomfortable because most humans rely on others not noticing their contradictions to maintain their sense of self. When someone realizes you see what they are hiding, their carefully constructed world starts to feel fragile. Your presence shifts dynamics because people know they cannot manipulate or impress you easily. Lies, half-truths, or selective storytelling fall flat. Emotional theatrics lose their impact. Even when someone tries to rationalize or justify themselves, your silent awareness exposes the gaps and contradictions without a single word of judgment. That quiet, unspoken perception is far more effective than confrontation because it creates accountability without forcing a reaction. This ability also signals intelligence and discernment in a way that is hard to ignore. People sense that you understand motives, patterns, and outcomes on a level beyond the obvious. Your perception does not just reveal hypocrisy, it highlights your clarity, your consistency, and your emotional acuity. Others cannot replicate it, and that difference creates both respect and unease. You are not cruel, but your awareness acts as a mirror people cannot avoid. They notice that nothing superficial hides from you, and that realization alone is destabilizing. People instinctively feel that you are fully alert, fully aware, and fully unshaken by deception. That combination of perception, restraint, and insight makes your presence quietly formidable, deeply magnetic, and profoundly unsettling. Number 11. You integrate logic and intuition instead of choosing sides. Most people live in extremes. They rely on reason alone or get swept away by emotion. And both approaches leave them predictable and easily influenced. You operate differently. You do not see logic and intuition as opposing forces. They are tools you combine seamlessly. You evaluate situations with analytical precision while simultaneously trusting instinct, gut feeling, and subtle cues that others overlook. This balance allows you to see what is real, what matters, and what is being hidden. And it gives you an awareness that is both deep and nuanced. People around you notice this immediately, even if they cannot articulate it. You are not predictable because your decisions are not based on trend, pressure, or bias. They are based on insight. While others argue or react, you absorb patterns, contradictions, and possibilities, then act with clarity that feels almost effortless. That combination makes people uneasy because it is unfamiliar. They cannot sway you by appealing only to logic or only to emotion. You exist outside the usual frameworks they rely on to feel smart, safe, or in control. This integration also amplifies your discernment. You can identify when someone is being dishonest or performative, not just because facts do not add up, but because the energy behind the words does not match the reasoning. You notice when intentions are misaligned with outcomes, and you process that instantly. That awareness does not need to be broadcast. It simply informs how you move and respond. People sense it, and it unnerves them because they realize they cannot manipulate the situation in the ways they normally would. Your presence challenges habitual thinking. People instinctively feel that you perceive depth, complexity, and motive in ways they do not. They notice that you do not oversimplify or overcomplicate. You integrate both dimensions effortlessly. That integration gives you a quiet authority, a kind of intelligence that commands attention without demanding it. Others feel the weight of it, even if you never speak. It is subtle, but it is impossible to ignore. Your ability to combine logic and intuition makes your presence sharp, your judgments precise, and your influence quietly undeniable. Number 12. You do not rush to fix people, and that denies them an escape. Most people are quick to offer solutions, advice, or comfort the moment someone expresses struggle. They rush in to help because it makes them feel needed, in control, or morally superior. You do not operate that way. You do not feel compelled to rescue or smooth things over. You understand that true growth, clarity, and accountability happen when people face reality rather than avoid it. By not rushing in, you force situations and people to reveal their true nature. That honesty is uncomfortable for those accustomed to being shielded from the consequences of their own actions. People sense this immediately, even if they cannot put it into words. Your presence does not soothe for the sake of appearances. It observes, evaluates, and waits. That waiting is potent because it strips away the usual escapes. People realize they cannot rely on someone else to clean up their mistakes, to interpret their excuses, or to mask their contradictions. That absence of immediate rescue exposes them. Their habits, lies, and manipulations are no longer effective. Your restraint becomes a mirror, and they feel it as a quiet pressure that forces awareness without a single word. The subtle power here is in your timing and discernment. You act when it is necessary, when insight or intervention serves a meaningful purpose, not because anyone demands it. That measured response amplifies your credibility and authority. People can sense that your involvement is deliberate, not reactive. They notice that you do not waste energy on meaningless drama, and that makes them nervous because they cannot predict when or how you will engage. By not rushing to fix, you highlight accountability and truth. People who rely on constant validation or external solutions feel exposed around you. They recognize, consciously or not, that they cannot manipulate you with urgency, emotion, or appeals for attention. Your awareness and patience deny them their usual safety nets, creating a subtle but undeniable tension. That tension is magnetic, commanding, and deeply unsettling because it shows that you operate on a level where responsibility, clarity, and insight matter more than appearances, excuses, or convenience. Number 13. You can sit with uncomfortable truths longer than most. Most people avoid reality when it is painful, inconvenient, or morally complex. They distract themselves, rationalize inconsistencies, or create comforting stories to shield their minds from discomfort. You do not. You can sit with harsh truths, contradictions, and moral ambiguity without flinching. You do not need to resolve everything immediately or simplify life into easy categories. That endurance sets you apart and quietly unsettles those around you because they instinctively know you will not be fooled by comforting illusions. Your ability to confront the raw, messy truth gives you clarity that others cannot access. Where people panic or become defensive, you remain composed. You process motives, intentions, and consequences without being overwhelmed by emotion or the urge to escape. That does not make you cold. It makes you steady, observant, and aware in ways that feel disarming to anyone used to emotional volatility. When you are in a conversation or a situation, your presence communicates that nothing superficial will sway you. People sense that your understanding is not based on appearances or narratives, and that awareness can make them anxious, because their usual tactics of charm, exaggeration, or manipulation will not work. Being comfortable with uncomfortable truths also makes you a mirror. Others reveal themselves when they assume you will conform to their narrative or take the easy side. You do not. You absorb, process, and respond with precision, showing them that avoidance and deception hold no power over you. That quiet, unwavering attention exposes weaknesses and dishonesty without a single dramatic gesture. This endurance also elevates your decision-making. You can weigh risks, outcomes, and moral consequences without rushing to a conclusion. People around you feel the weight of that capability. They notice that you operate on a deeper plane where clarity and truth matter more than appearances, popularity, or comfort. Your ability to sit with what most would rather ignore communicates strength, intelligence, and discernment. That presence is magnetic, unsettling, and quietly commanding, because it reveals who they are even when they wish it did not. Number 14. You do not perform spirituality. You embody discernment. Most people confuse spirituality with performance. They recite phrases, quote philosophies, or act as if wisdom is a costume to wear in public. You do not do that. You do not need to sound enlightened or prove your insight. You embody it. Your intelligence, awareness, and spiritual alignment are not for show. They are lived, active, and quietly undeniable. That authenticity is disarming because people cannot fake it, replicate it, or influence it. They sense that your understanding comes from lived experience, observation, and deep reflection, not from borrowed words or social approval. What makes this so powerful is that discernment operates in silence. You see intentions clearly, recognize patterns effortlessly, and notice energy that others miss entirely. You act and respond from understanding rather than impulse, fear, or pride. That ability makes people uneasy because it removes their usual tools of manipulation. They cannot sway you with lies, guilt, charm, or theatrics. Your awareness exposes what others try to hide without a single confrontational word. They feel the weight of your presence before you even speak, and that alone commands respect and often fear. Your discernment also communicates boundaries in a way that performance never can. People quickly realize they cannot test, deceive, or exhaust you. You choose when to engage, when to observe, and when to intervene. And every choice reflects thoughtfulness rather than reaction. That control of energy, combined with clarity of judgment, makes your presence magnetic. Others instinctively recognize that you operate on a level of perception and insight that they cannot touch, no matter how hard they try. By embodying discernment instead of performing spirituality, you shift interactions and environments naturally. You do not need to explain, prove, or teach. People sense your depth, your integrity, and your alignment, and that presence alone unsettles those who rely on superficial appearances to navigate the world. You are not loud, flashy, or performative. Yet your influence is undeniable. Your intelligence and spiritual power resonate quietly, exposing truth, commanding attention, and leaving an impact that words alone could never achieve. The truth is, your spiritual power and intelligence are not surface-level traits. They are deep, unwavering forces that operate in ways most people cannot comprehend. You do not need to dominate, perform, or convince anyone of your strength. Your presence alone shifts dynamics, exposes illusions, and challenges the comfortable narratives that others cling to. Every subtle observation you make, every quiet choice you execute, and every disciplined restraint you hold communicates a level of awareness and mastery that is impossible to ignore. People feel it before they can name it. They sense that your mind sees patterns they do not, that your energy does not bend to pressure, and that your understanding is precise, layered, and unshakable. You do not play by the rules that govern ordinary interactions. You think in layers, integrate logic and intuition, and hold space for uncomfortable truths while others flinch or distract themselves. You recognize manipulation without reacting to it, question without threatening, and observe without needing applause. You carry restraint, independence, and discernment like invisible armor. And that combination creates a presence that is both magnetic and quietly intimidating. Your awareness dismantles illusions. Your clarity exposes pretense. And your intelligence positions you as someone whose influence cannot be forced, only acknowledged. This is why people are quietly afraid of your intelligence. Not because it is loud, showy, or aggressive, but because it operates on a level they cannot touch. You embody truth, awareness, and precision, and that presence alone commands attention. You are not performing spirituality, you are living it. You are not chasing validation, you are defining your own standard. You are not reacting to chaos. You are mastering it silently, consistently, and deliberately. If this resonates with you, recognize the power you already carry and own it fully. Do not dilute your presence for comfort or approval. Stand in your intelligence, your awareness, and your spiritual clarity, and let the world adjust around you. God bless you.